if this is what you want to do, then there is a degree of sacrifice. When you're starting, I think it's that idea of you're always looking at the result. Yeah, and in fact, the result is much probably the least important thing. It's actually the process. It's the journey is more important than the destination. A lot of my own capital has gone to my own production company, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Behind the Brand, a series where we focus on the journey to building successful businesses. Building a business is never easy, so we have special guests like today who are going to tell you exactly how they got to where they are. So I hope you learned something for it, apply it for yourself, and make sure you stay tuned to the Undiscovered creative community. Subscribe, like, and comment below.
My name's Anthony Vander. I'm a film producer and a filmmaker, and I'm also the CEO of Distortion Entertainment, which is a film production company based in London. I just remember I was in a corridor back in 2008 at drama school, and I wanted to create my own opportunity. So I started a film production company, and that was really the beginnings of Distortion Entertainment. I started writing theatre plays, putting them on in theatre pubs at the beginning because it was a cheaper space to hire. From there we just grew and grew from the Roundhouse, and then we were directing short films and then feature films, and yeah, it just grew and grew. But the origins were based back in Farringdon when I was at drama school, just creating my own yes. I think it's incredibly important. The process of starting Distortion Entertainment was tricky. A lot of talent was working for free at the beginning. A lot of hiring spaces was done for favors, and I had to work a lot more jobs when I was starting out. I remember I was working 4 jobs at the time, so it was tricky. But it's this idea of a lot of the creatives that I was working with when I was starting out, there'll usually be creatives that are hungry and whose visions align with yours. So that process was made much easier by that. But I think as well, you're just learning on the job. And then that process of creating something, putting it out there, it going to festivals, seeing it, traveling the world, creating marketing, then it opens up doors. But starting out, it's tricky. I did a lot of crowdfunding, which is something that's played a continual part in the journey. And with crowdfunding, I'd say I'm like 2 for 6, and that means that there's been 6 crowdfunders and 2 have only earned their full amount. So the first thing is you have to invest in yourself. That's the first thing, of investing in yourself. And a lot of my own capital has gone to my own production company, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Why would someone else invest in me if I'm not investing in myself? So again, it is tricky, but that's the process. There's enjoyment in that adversity, and I think that's something that I try and champion, is make uncomfortable things your comfort. It's exhausting working X amount of jobs, delegating, juggling a variety of roles. It is exhausting. But again, it's this idea of, I always go back to, if this is what you want to do, then there is a degree of sacrifice. And if that sacrifice might be your time, it might be your attention, it might be your capital. This is just it. But I think starting out, it was very, very uncomfortable. And I think having a great support network is really, really important. having friends, having family that really, a lot of my friends from high school, some of them are bankers, some of them, you know, they work in marketing. So they really, they're there for that, they support, you know, they support, and they've continued to support. So I think that's made easier, but I'm not gonna lie, it's very uncomfortable, it's very stressful, but that is the process. I believe that even if there's a lot of creatives that have had it easy for an amount of time, that adversity will come. And sometimes it might not be because X or Y, but it's just part of that, it's part of the journey. No journey is ever just straight. It's never just a forward line, it's squiggly, it's different shapes. When I look back on it, it's this idea of the concern and the worry that there's a lack of money in this industry. It makes more sense than it did when you're starting. Because when you're starting, I think it's that idea of you're always looking at the result. Yeah, and in fact, the result is probably the least important thing. It's actually the process. It's the journey is more important than the destination. So they were supportive, I would say, in their ways, which is kind of asking a lot of questions, uncomfortable questions, like how much does it earn you? You know, is this a proper job? And you think, you know, it's easy to laugh at that, but these are important questions, because at the end of the day, there is still inequality, and there is still a struggle in terms of the statistics in the industry. So it was tricky in terms of, but they were always supportive, even if they didn't necessarily agree with all of it. And I think what was really beautiful was when I did have one of London Live, which is a cable television channel, when they bought one of my feature films and I was able to watch it with my parents, they understood, you know, that this was the process. This is why I wanted to do this. So yeah. I think one of the challenges is starting. I think self-talk is really, really important. Saying to yourself, look, I can do this. It's a smaller industry than people think it is. I think there's this idea that it's really massive and it's very, very far away, where it's not like that. I think as a creative, you can get a phone call tomorrow saying, okay, here's X amount on the table, I want you to make this, I'm gonna commission you to do this, go out and do it. So I think that idea of confidence, gratitude, self-talk, affirmations, I think that's really, really important, because if not, then if you're not mentally ready to get into that space, then I think that energy will carry itself through. And I think, especially in this industry, so many people have worked in it for so long, so they're kind of great readers of energy. I think also the idea of making sure that leadership as well, that idea for me, when I directed a feature film back in 2013, a lot of other HODs, you know, they were much more experienced than I was. And it's just the idea of getting them on side and making sure that they can believe in that vision of what that project is. And sometimes that might include uncomfortable conversations, especially when, you know, you're hearing from someone that has less experience than you. But I think those conversations lead to growth. And I think what this industry is about growth. We're all trying to grow. We're all trying to create visions. We're all trying to leave a mark. Yeah. So it's that idea of just adapting and creating that ensemble, and also kind of speaking about adapting, things go wrong on film sets. Like, it's that idea of every film set that I've been on, 90% of the time, you know, whether it's the weather or whether it's, you know, funds run out very, very quickly. So you budget for you allocate the space for a certain budget, and when you know you're running behind, so you're gonna have to allocate more time for pickups. So it's just allowing yourself to adapt, because it's not usually, it's not linear, it's a squiggly journey. Exercise plays a massive, massive part in my life, in terms of just allocating an hour, whether to go for a very long run or to play sports. Just so, again, it's that idea of that will take my mind off it, because I think it's really important for other creatives to know that as much as this is your life, there is also other things going on in the world. And I think that's really, really important. Which sounds like a contradiction, it's that idea of, yes, it's everything. I always say it's everything and it's nothing. It's everything in the fact that you want to share the vision, you want to inspire people, but it's also nothing in the idea that there's so many other world issues going on. And so there's that. I would also say I do lists. So I do a list of each day, and it's that thing of, if I say that I'm gonna do an application, I've got a meeting, we've got to do this on marketing, we've got to film, we've got to prepare storyboards for this particular day, and I try and get everything done on that list in that day, but if I don't, that's okay, but it has to be done in that week, because I think your word is really, really important. So I think lists help. As I've got older and older, I don't like to take too much time out. And again, it's hard to switch off, because you do get a lot of contacts from other producers or other actors. So it's hard to fully switch off. But I think social media, taking time off social media is really good. And just really kind of being specific with what it is that you want to achieve. Maybe list is good for me. Maybe it might just be, for someone else, it might just be pinpointing one thing and really, really working on that one thing during a week and blocking out the noise. But I think allowing yourself time is really, really important, and knowing that nothing is built in a day. You know, you can make a film in a week, but the preparation will be about 3 months. So that's the unseen work. But you can't rush it. I've rushed projects in the past, and every project that I've rushed it's been a failure. And that's not a bad thing, because you learn from failure, but the lesson is, don't rush, just take your time. The first massive milestone was with a feature film. It was called Sweet Boy. It was the first feature film that we produced. I was juggling a lot. There was a lot of adversity in the process of making that feature film, but we got into the American Black Film Festival, and that gave me just a huge amount of confidence, because in that film festival, Spike Lee had one of his films which was premiering, and it was also in New York. So I traveled to other film festivals before, but that was mainly to just watch films, to network, to collaborate. Whereas this was actually our own feature film in this competition. So again, from a marketing perspective, that was really, really huge. It's funny, I shared a photo of it on LinkedIn the other day, because it's like 10 years to this day that we premiered in New York. And so that was a really big milestone, because it just gave me confidence. I would say another milestone was actually quite recently. So this TV pilot that we've still got to finish, but we showed some scenes from it, and it's a TV pilot centered around amateur boxing. And instead of premiering the scenes in a cinema, which is usually what I've done, we premiered it in a boxing gym, and we got a massive 100-inch projector. We stuck it in the middle of a boxing ring. We previewed the scenes, and then after the preview of the scenes, we had a boxing session for some of the attendees, not all of them. Not all of them wanted to participate, but some of the attendees. But what this event did is it also helped to raise money for the boxing gym. And, you know, we've documented all of it. We've got like a 5-minute featurette. But why was that important was because, and why that was a milestone was because we were actually making a massive difference with regard to, it became less about the TV pilot and more about the boxing gym. And I'm not saying art always has to be kind of politicized or has to be making an environmental difference. For me, art doesn't always have to be that, but with this specific project, it does. And it became more about raising awareness. Because again, similar to the film industry, a lot of industries have been hit from COVID, and also pre-COVID, just lack of government resources. And one of those was the boxing gym. So if we're able to just raise awareness for boxing gyms with this pilot, then that's a big milestone for me, because we're merging art with the sport, which is culminating in awareness. I remember that day. It was last year, and it was a bittersweet day. And why I say that is because I remember I'd had a Zoom with a TV producer, and it was about getting me on a job for a television show that I'd shadowed on. And at the moment, this was when the kind of ramifications of the strikes were starting to hit. So I remember that Zoom meeting and the producer just saying, look, get in contact with me, and like, you sometimes get in contact with me in 4 months, and we'll see what we can do. But at the moment, the doors are, there's a gap in the door. It's not closed, but there's just a gap. And then I remember getting off that Zoom and getting an email from BAFTA saying I've been accepted as a full member, which I thought was insane, because the year before I had applied for a different tier of membership for BAFTA and I didn't get it. And then to get the full membership, which is actually the highest tier you can get, again, it's gratitude. It's gratitude, but also saying, and I think I always say creatives should be thankful and grateful, but I think once you achieve something, not in an arrogant way, but also saying, I do deserve this, And I used to be quite apologetic when starting out, and I'm not really apologetic about something like that, because I've grafted and I've created my own yes. So yeah, I was very grateful to be accepted in that, and I think I'm glad, because I know BAFTA had come under a lot of pressure for lack of diversity in their institution. So I think for me now, it's like, I'm grateful, but what else can I do, Sometimes when I'm in the space, when I go to the building, I'm like, try and count how many people look like me. And there's not many. There's a few. I'm not doing this interview to, lose my membership. But it's that idea of, I was just grateful, and I said I deserve this, but I also think that there's a lot of work to be done, and it's I think what that membership allows is it does help me enter different spaces. It does help me when I have meetings. it does allow me to get into cinemas like for free and to do voting, but it's also, there's a lot of other resources from that membership that I haven't tapped into yet, and I need to give myself time to tap into that. So but the main thing was just gratitude and saying I deserve this. So the misconceptions about the film industry personally is that it's this big, out of reach, selected universe. And I would say it's the opposite. I think it's the more I've been in the industry, I realized that it's quite small. A lot of people know each other. So if you might not know this person, you'll know someone that knows this person, and vice versa. I also think there can be a misconception sometimes from the media that there can be egos. So I'm not going to disagree with that. But what I would say is that the majority of people that you come across are really kind and really supportive. I think just it's about reaching out and finding that support network. Because I think there can sometimes be a misconception that it's just all ego, it's all drama, it's all gossip. No, people are working long hours. They're working sometimes it can be like 14-hour days and longer. So for me, I would say those are the two biggest misconceptions. The writer's strike was really important because, again, the studios were profiting a lot of creatives, and a lot of creatives were being locked in certain deals and not getting the residuals, and their work was being shown from many years, and they're not getting anything from it. So I think it was really, really important that happened. Again, it's been tricky because what it did do is that it created a gap where a lot of things weren't produced. So I think it was important that it happened. I think the concern is, which I think is another amazing thing, and with a lot of life in the industry, it's like there's great things, but there's also things that I wouldn't exactly diminish, but I'd say be wary of, is AI. And this idea of studios using creatives, whether they're actors, using a lot of their details, and AI has been so powerful that it's able to write scripts. I know there's an AI feature film out that's completely written by AI. There's a lot of animation. I've worked with AI before. I'm learning about it, but it's also this thing of it's helped create opportunity, but it's also helped create it's helped people lose their jobs as well. So I think that is a concern, and it's an ongoing battle. But I think these strikes needed to happen. It's just maintaining the kind of forward motion, maintaining when the industry, why you're in love with the industry, to keep going. But do I think strikes might happen again? Probably, especially with AI. And I think it's necessary to happen. But also it's just making sure that the industry can grow. As much staticness comes from those strikes, it's important that the industry does continue to grow, and the strikes are there for a reason. The UK industry is aware. It's very aware, which is great. I think awareness is one of the first points of accountability. It's aware there's a gap, there's a lack. I think what needs to happen is just consistency. I think this year has been quite good in terms of, having TV shows with black and ethnic minorities, such as, you know, Queenie, Supercell, Borders, Champion. But what my concern is that next year that there's nothing. It can't be flavor of the month. So I think there's still a lot of work for the industry to do. But again, I always have this idea, and with someone like Rapman, who's Supercell is doing incredibly. He has a lot of American backing. He's in a very powerful position. Starting out, he was, you know, as well as a musician, he was heavy doing YouTube. You know, he was creating his own narrative. Same with Daniel Kaluuya, who's, you know, he's massive actor, producer. You know, him and another guy, they were doing comedy sketches on YouTube. So as much as I always think, what can the industry do for us? I also think, what can I do for the industry? And my whole thing is, the industry is always changing. And what that change creates is confusion. So the industry doesn't actually know what it wants. All I know is that the industry does want something. So I think for those coming up, you've got to disrupt. You've got to disrupt. Disrupt means creating your own yes. Disrupt means putting out content which, you know, will blow people away. That might involve risk. That might involve doing something that could fail miserably. But you don't have those thoughts when you're going in. That's just maybe, that's all results. If you can just find the process, but also researching and saying, okay, if there's a gap here, what am I gonna do about it? You know, what am I gonna do about this percentage of HODs not getting an opportunity, not even to work, but also to understand the resources and the business side of it. What am I gonna do? So I think it's being accountable, but I think this industry is just, I think it's had a good year, but it's just about consistency. And whether that consistency is maintained is the rabbit hole of that is sometimes it's not just down to the production companies, it's actually, you know, it gets to politics as well. And, you know, how much investment from X party will be invested in the industry. But consistency will fuel it forward. But it's in a good place. It's in a good place. My number one advice would be to do it. That's my number. And what I mean by that is, I think with a lot of actors and filmmakers, when they're starting out, they feel that they have to have a particular funding to create something. And I always say with a lot of actors that I work with, I say you don't need a £6,000 camera to make a film. There's quite a few films on Netflix that have been shot with an iPhone. So you know, you don't need to be validated. You validate yourself. So I'd say find other creatives that share that same hunger. Collaborate with them and create. Put your own money together. Invest in yourself. Because I think as someone in this industry, you can get caught up in the thought, and the thought is great. The thought does create the reality, but then once you overthink, nothing gets done. It just becomes the thought. And I think sometimes I've been guilty of this with a lot of creatives. You have this idea, you know, you have a million ideas, and with this million ideas, not one gets executed. So it's also about finding out what the best idea is. And sometimes that idea, those ideas might need to be shared. Not always with creatives, it could be with someone whose opinion you respect, who isn't in the creative industry. But also set yourself a target. Set yourself a target. If this is year one of starting out and you've written a script and you want to get it filmed, you want to get it out there, set a target of, I don't know, 6 months, 4 months. Maybe less. depends on what the intensity of your work ethic is. But the most important thing is to get it done and collaborate with those people and be accountable. I think if you can be accountable to that, then you'll achieve a lot. There's this idea that the first thing you do needs to be the masterpiece. Well, yes, but then there's the idea of this pressure will help fuel you forward, but use this pressure to fuel you forward. Don't use it to become over anxious. So even if it isn't, failure is part of the journey. But the most important thing is that you do it. The most important thing is that you start creating and that you develop a body of work. Because if you don't if it stays the thought and you don't get anything done, someone else will, number one. And also two, the people that you most really want to work with that are in the spaces where they have unlimited resources of funding, they'll ask you, what have you been working on? And if you say, I've been working on my thoughts, that's all it will be. Whereas if you've got something that's out in the universe, online, you know, a short film, then they'll want to know more. The future for Distortion, the future for me, I think there's going to be a lot more co-productions. So again, this idea, creatives, most of them, if they haven't already, it's the industry, the film industry isn't just London. The film industry isn't just America. The film industry is the Middle East, it's Asia, it's Africa. So I think what these co-productions will help do is expand our audience, expand our reach, expand our collaborations. So I want to do a lot more co-productions. I want to do also a lot more, create different genres of feature films. We're also entering the horror space, which is a space that we actually haven't entered before. So it is a profitable space, but it's also a space that I think can have different subgenres. And then I also would like to do, education's played a huge part in my career in terms of I lecture to different filmmakers. I started out doing acting, do workshops for actors, so I'd love to do like a lot more talks and inspire the next generation, because for me, again, even when I'm doing masterclasses or lecturing or even on a film set, I'm not above praise and I'm not below criticism. You know, everyone can learn, including myself, because that knowledge and that thought helps me grow. I would say to my younger self, I'm great at this. That's what I'd say to my younger self. That I would uplift, champion, motivate my younger self more than I did when I was young. Because when I was young, it's that idea of sometimes you always talk yourself out of things. Even those things that you end up doing, there's a lot of doubt. There's a lot of, and that doubt is created sometimes through what the market is at the time. It's not always about your own insecurities. So I would say to my younger self, you are great, you can do this. So to everyone that has watched this, I would like to say thank you. I'm hugely appreciative for watching this. I would also say, create your own yes. You've got this. Get to work. Find like-minded creatives, and just go out and create, and do it with a smile on your face, and you've got this. You are great. Know that you are great and that you've got this.